What's going on, everybody? Matthew back again, this time for another TV review. This time it is part 2 of Cobra Kai Season 6. Let's get into it. So first off, let me start by saying that I really wish that part 2 had a rehash of what happened in part 1. I found myself having to try to put the pieces together as I was watching episode 6 and have to remember everything. I believe it's been maybe 3 months since part 1 dropped, and we're going to have to wait another 3 months for part 3 and the actual finale of the show. But getting started with episode 6 of season 6, my first note here is that charges were dropped against Kreese, which it seems very convenient story wise. That can happen sometimes in this kind of show, but the show is still so wholesome, and there are so many good messages in the show, and the characters are so well done and thorough that you kind of forgive stuff like that. But he basically said that because he has PTSD and is a veteran, they were able to drop the charges. Now, to be honest, and this is why they needed a rehash, I cannot remember. I know Silver screwed over Kreese, and that's why Kreese was in prison. But I cannot remember what he was framed for doing. Um, and so I can't remember if him getting out because he's a veteran and has PTSD, and he escaped prison. It's not like they let him out. He escaped. So they dropped the charges after you escape prison. Whatever, just gotta let that one slide. Still like the show, still like Kreese, still like the characters, but I couldn't help but notice that. We are introduced to the Iron Dragons and their leader, whose name I cannot remember at the moment, but we're introduced to him because he steals Johnny's steak, and Johnny almost gets in a fight over him stealing his steak at the dinner. Pretty funny stuff. Just run of the mill stuff for Johnny there, almost getting in a fight over something as small as steak. But moving from there to episode 7, Daniel gets kidnapped. And this is another thing with this show where it's like, really, that's a little over the top. But like I said, the characters are so good. The show is so wholesome. It's so good at making fun of itself that you kind of forgive these things. And I have to point out, too, that they continue with these Christian themes throughout the show. It's a very Christian show, which is really nice to see in the day and age that we live in. This little, I think it was a little boy or a little girl, sells this little keychain to Daniel who has a picture of Jesus on it. And that ends up being the way that he escapes the dog cage that he's imprisoned in. He fights some people and he gets back to the tournament. I also have a note here about girls versus boys. In this tournament, they don't have a problem with girls fighting boys. I assume that it's because this is the world tournament. This is the best of the best. They assume that you can handle yourself. If you are literally in a situation where you're being attacked and maybe your life's at stake and you're a girl, you're going to need to be able to defend yourself against guys. So, and I know I'm not an expert at all about karate or MMA or anything like that, but I know there's such thing as like gaining leverage. I've seen some female MMA fighters do it to men where they are able to gain leverage enough to be able to slam them. So it's all about leverage. So I'm able to kind of overlook that kind of stuff and just enjoy the entertainment of the show and all of the fighting that goes into it. I have another note for, I love how every time Kreese is introduced, whether he's like up against a wall or just off screen and he reveals himself, there's always dramatic music. And they do the same thing with Hawk. Whenever Hawk flies through the air to punch somebody, you hear the hawk screeching. They just another example of how this show likes to kind of poke fun at itself, but still continue to deliver strong characters and messages. I really like that about this show. And out of nowhere, there's something wrong with the pregnancy. Miguel's mom is pregnant, and there's something wrong with her pregnancy. Johnny and Miguel, out of nowhere, have to fly all the way back to America, all the way to California, to go visit her. They treat flying across the world in this part 2 of season 6 as if it's no big deal. Maybe it isn't for most people. I've never flown in my life. So conveniently just like flying all the way, where are they? Brazil, maybe? All the way from there to California and then back. Whatever. I don't know that world. I don't fly a lot, but I thought that was kind of strange. And it really did come out of nowhere. And that moves us to Episode 8, where I have a note about the drinking age. The kids go out. Danny decides he's going to take a nap since he was just kidnapped and escaped. He's going to take a nap, and Chosen is in charge of the kids. But Chosen has already allowed the children to go out and have a good time, go to the bars. And we see all these kids drinking, and these are all high school age children, and they're all drinking. I guess the laws are different where they are. I think in Brazil, I believe that's where they are. Um, but they're all drinking. I just had to make a note about that. Maybe it is different there. It wouldn't surprise me. But it's here that Chosen and the Asian woman who's in charge of the Cobra Kai, they've run into each other. They're both looking for their children to make sure they don't get into trouble. And they actually end up hooking up. And I have a note here. We see what that Asian woman looks like with her hair down, and she looks really good. I just had to make a note of that. She always has that in a ponytail. Not a bad looking woman at all. But I had to point out that with her hair down, wow, very good looking woman. Just had to make a note of that. And my next note is Rocky 2. Miguel and Miguel and Johnny make it back to Miguel's mom, who is having difficulties with the pregnancy. And she looks at them and says, "Win." Just straight out of Rocky 2. And that's another thing that this show does, which I love. They have no problem at all referencing 80s movies and music, just on the nose, not embarrassed about it at all, and I love it. She looks at Johnny and says, "Win." Looks at Miguel and says, "Win." She gives them her endorsement to go back, all the way back, and finish the tournament. Now, is it a little forced? I believe so. She has what seems to be very serious complications in her pregnancy where she's bleeding. They get all the way there, and then it's like, "Oh, no, I'm fine, guys. No big deal. Oh, okay. We just flew all the way here. But anyway, I guess we'll fly all the way back. Whatever works for me." And then at the end of the episode, we find out Silver is back. I was scared that he wasn't going to return. In hindsight, that feels kind of stupid, having that fear. But he's back. He was in prison, or he was arrested at the end of season 5. They were able to prove that, I can't remember this again, why they need a rehash. I can't remember what Silver did. I just remember him getting arrested. But Silver's back. He was able to get out of it through his money, which is more believable than Kreese, because Silver's very rich, and we know that the world we live in, people can buy themselves out of trouble and out of prison if they want to. But Silver's back, and that moves us into episode 9. Kenny is also back. He flew back with Miguel and Johnny after he found out that, what's her name? Desmond, I believe that's her name. She admitted to feeding him laxatives and making him crap his pants so that she could get his spot in the tournament. Kenny comes back, and there's this weird moment where some of the kids don't trust Kenny. They think it's weird that Kenny and Silver showing up at the same time could possibly mean that Kenny's working for Silver to get revenge. This felt a little forced to me, just to add a little bit of drama. But it goes to prove how good of a leader Robbie is. It is Robbie's opportunity to lead, and he does it by trusting Kenny, which benefits the team. It benefits Miyagi-Do. Kenny comes into the fight, and he helps them win, and he flips off Silver. Great moment for Kenny, great moment for Miyagi-Do. And then we have the final bout between Robbie and Quan, where this is to eliminate either Miyagi-Do or Cobra Kai. They both go in for a kick. Robbie connects to the cheekbone of Quan, and it's over. Cobra Kai is eliminated. And from there, we move to episode 10. And here we start out with a dream sequence, or really a nightmare sequence, of Daniel fighting Mr. Miyagi. And it's here that we see them use that same computer effect where they bring back people who are dead. Some people don't like that. I don't mind it as long as you have permission of the family. My only issue in this case, and in many other cases like Alien Romulus, it normally looks fine when you just use their face. It's not until they start speaking and the mouth starts moving that it looks very fake. And I've always thought to myself, if you do that and the mouth looks really bad, just cut that part out. Cut the mouth movement out and just leave it as the face, because when Mr. Miyagi started talking, it just looked very fake. And you could have easily just cut that out and just shown Miyagi's face, before punching Daniel, and it would have been far more effective, in my opinion. When the mouth starts moving and it looks like a bad video game, you really break the immersion, and I don't like it. But moving from there, we have that Cobra Kai survives because another team, they were using performance enhancing drugs, and that'll definitely come into play later. But Cobra Kai is now back into the thick of things. I have here why write it that way? Why have Cobra Kai get eliminated just to have them back in? But it actually does make sense later on, because that when Miyagi Do eliminated Cobra Kai, that is going to turn out to be the true elimination of Cobra Kai, and we're going to get into that. Now, all the teams are there. They're actually in the middle of the tournament, and then Quan elbows Robbie. This kind of starts making everybody freak out, and then as the leader of the tournament is speaking, he gets knocked out by the leader of the team that was just eliminated for the not drug possession, but performance enhancing drugs. He knocks him out, and then there's an all out brawl. This reminds me of the school brawl, I think in season 2, but on an even bigger level because these are all experts. These are all the best of the best, and they're just going at it. And it's just the show having fun before it ends. Everybody's fighting, but it isn't just the show having fun. There's actually another message in here. We've been introduced to this knife that Kreese has, and I believe, if I remember correctly, another reason why we need a rehash, I believe he got that knife when he killed that snake in that cave in part 1 of season 6. That knife means a lot to him. He was actually planning to go hurt Silver with it. I don't know if he was just going to hurt him or kill him. I don't know what's wrong with Kreese. He really needs to figure his stuff out. We were introduced in earlier seasons about his past, how he went to war, to Vietnam, and it's there that he had a girl. I can't remember if they got married or not. But he had a girl. She died in a car crash while he was in Vietnam, and his sergeant knew about it, didn't tell him until they had to fight to the death. Kreese gives into his anger and allows his sergeant to die in the snake pit. Now, I don't believe they would have introduced all that if they're just trying to make Kreese to be just an all-out villain. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. The brawl continues. Kreese has this knife. It falls on the floor. He doesn't know it. He's fighting Silver, and Johnny's helping him fight Silver. When Quan gets a hand on that knife, he goes in to try to take out Axel, who's the big guy from Iron Dragons. He goes for a kick. Axel blocks it. Quan falls on the knife and accidentally kills himself. And now we have another accidental death, just like back when Miyagi, his fight led to a death way back decades ago. There's certainly going to be a message in this. Remember, in Karate Kid, the very original movie, Miyagi was not about tournaments. He thought karate was for self-defense alone, not tournaments. What is this going to do for Daniel? Daniel's probably going to regret ever joining a tournament, opening up Miyagi-Do. He's going to have a lot of conflict, inner conflict. I'm very much looking forward to see how Daniel handles this. How does Kreese handle this? Where we left off, everyone is surrounding Quan's body. Kreese knows that that's his knife. Is Kreese going to immediately own up to it? Is he immediately going to own up to it? This is how I see things going, and I could definitely be wrong. Kreese owns up to it. This changes Kreese's life. He comes to understand his inner demons and that he needs help. I believe that Johnny is going to be sympathetic to Kreese. I also believe that Silver is going to be sympathetic to Kreese. I think Johnny and Silver are both going to, now that this is life and death, they're going to overlook everything and they're going to be concerned for Kreese. Now, I could just be optimistic. Kreese could just go to jail and that's it. But how does Silver's story end? Does Silver's story end with him trying to help Kreese? Because remember, they were bros. They were buddies in Vietnam. Kreese looked out for Silver. And Silver always owed that to Kreese until like reason or season 4 when Silver backstabbed Kreese. But when it comes to life and death, this is much more serious than winning a karate tournament, being the best dojo. A kid is now dead, and it's Kreese's fault. I think that's where things go. I think that Johnny and Silver are going to sympathize with Kreese. Daniel's going to be disheveled, and the tournament's over. The tournament's over. We have 5 episodes left. The tournament's definitely over. Everybody's just going to go home. What's the lesson? The lesson is probably going to end up being what Miyagi said at the very beginning, back in the 80s. Karate is for self-defense. It's not for tournaments. It's not for entertainment. People can get hurt. So I think that's what the message is going to end up being. Great part 2. I wasn't sure how well part 2 was going to be. I kind of waited a couple of days. There was a lot going on with the election and everything, but I finally got to watching part 2. Very happy with it. Best cliffhanger by far of the entire show. No doubt about it. We have to wait 3 months to see how all of these characters react to Kwan's death. And really probably the death of the, what's it called? The Kaisai Taikai, is that right? Maybe the death of that tournament altogether. Who knows? But anyway, guys, that's my review for part 2 of season 6 of Cobra Kai. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. What did I get wrong? What did I get right? What did I miss? Please hit that like button, subscribe, and we'll catch you guys next time. Take it easy.